Olivia asked Maggie out for a special purpose. In the cafe, Maggie sat across from Olivia, ordered a cappuccino, and looked over at Olivia. Maggie was confused and asked, "What's the matter to call me out? Can't we talk on the phone?" "Maggie, what I'm about to say may be a little hard for you to accept. You'll have to prepare yourself for it in advance." Olivia looked serious. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Maggie immediately covered her heart. "Don't scare me. I am timid." Olivia took a deep breath and said word for word, "Susan was pregnant." The other day Olivia was in the hospital and saw a single woman, Susan Bush. She quietly followed her to the gynecologist's office. She saw Susan into the doctor's office and quietly went to stand outside the room and heard what the doctor said to Susan. About 6 weeks from her pregnancy, if Susan was pregnant with a boy, she would swagger before others in the church family, which was dominated by women. Maggie was silent for a long time. Her mind was blank and her hands and feet were cold. She unconsciously grabbed Olivia's hand. "What should I do?" "Don't panic just yet. I told you, and you can be prepared ahead of time in case you get caught off guard." Olivia took Maggie's cold hands in hers and comforted her. Maggie was a little indecisive. "Should I tell my mom? I've considered this method. Your mother would have taken care of it if she had known, but it's easy to get in trouble. And maybe your father and your grandpa would still blame your mother for the fact that the church family had no grandson." Maggie gave up on telling her mother as soon as she heard it. As much as her grandfather loved her, the lack of grandson was still pity in his heart. "What can we do about that?" Maggie was all sad and looked like she was going to be in big trouble. "I do have an idea." Olivia hooked her hand and whispered in Maggie's ear. Meanwhile, there was another person who knew of Susan's pregnancy, Zoe. In the hotel room, Zoe was doing everything she could to try to make the man above her body happy. There was lasting and hearty sex between the two. Zoe lay on Nick, panting slightly as she drew circles on his chest. She deliberately put her chest against him and asked tenderly, "After all these days, are you still mad at me?" Nick stroked her hair. "It's good that you know you're wrong. Don't ever do that again, okay?" Zoe had given him the most important thing about being a woman, so what was he to be angry about? As for Zoe's origins, she had explained to him in detail. Now that she returned and lived in the quad, it was a de facto acknowledgement by the church family that she was still a daughter of the church family, the same as Maggie. When Zoe explained, her words revealed all the pain and suffering she had been through, causing Nick to feel bad that, from his point of view, at last, Zoe was just a victim and he shouldn't be too hard on her. Zoe, sensing Nick's attitude, raised her smile in satisfaction, buried her face into his collarbone, and said in a condescending tone, "I like you too much. I know I'm mean, but I can't leave you. Call me bad or call me shameless, even if I'm blamed by everyone and hated by my sister, I just want to be with you." That greatly satisfied Nick's ego as a man, and he kissed her hard, laughing and scolding. "Idiot. Do you like my sister?" Zoe tilted her head up and stared at him. Thinking of Maggie, Nick hesitated for a moment. The beautiful image of Maggie in the moonlight that night came to mind with an unexplainable emotion. Zoe took in Nick's reaction with a sense of crisis and hid a grim expression as she grabbed him. "I don't care. You re mine." "Yes, I'm yours. Can't you feel it just now?" said Nick, who came to his sense and snickered. Zoe looked shy, geeky. Young men and women have always been voracious for sex. Nick squeezed Zoe's chest and pushed her back underneath him to start a new round. Zoe enjoyed herself while looking forward to her future. Her mother was pregnant. If it was a boy, even she could gain some advantage from it. She wouldn't even have to worry about Maggie anymore. Susan heard from Zoe about Lacey, who convinced others to believe that Zoe was just a nominal foster daughter of the church family. Susan comforted Zoe by telling her the church family had plenty of reasons to disown her. With efforts, things would be different. Besides, she had to be patient and make Nick satisfied. Only in this way could she achieve her promising future. Olivia had promised Bruno a long time ago that she would go and model for him for free once. It just happened when Bruno's studio had a runway show of their new fall clothes and Bruno invited Olivia over. Olivia was looking forward to it. Although she didn't plan to be a star, she wanted to enter the entertainment industry in the future. The runway show was a nice thing to do, and it might give her some visibility. She had no classes during the day, so she arrived early at the address Bruno had sent her for the show. Bruno saved Olivia the best dress of the finale, to which the other professional models were displeased. Bruno was the boss, so people didn't dare to express their opinions explicitly. When Olivia arrived, people in the dressing room and the changing room all treated her like air. They did their own things and ignored her. Olivia was clear about their attitudes, and she felt a little embarrassed at the crowd's ill will. Bruno, being the boss, was too busy and didn't pay too much attention to Olivia. After calling a little assistant in charge of Olivia, he hurriedly went away. The little assistant sidetracked Olivia for a few moments. When she heard that Olivia wasn't even an amateur model and that today was her first time on the show, she looked even more disdainful than just now. She casually pointed to an empty chair. "There, go wait there. The makeup artist will take turns." Olivia noticed the mess of foundation and eyeshadow trays on the makeup table and a pile of brushes that had obviously been used for a long time. She politely asked, asked. I have sensitive skin. Can I use my own makeup? She's prone to skin allergies, so she didn't pay much attention when she first went to work part-time. She ever used someone else's makeup and it almost rotted her face. Since then, if she was going places where she had to make up, she would bring her own. Oh, you don't like what we offer here, huh? The little assistant's voice rose slightly, drawing the attention of the others. Olivia quickly explained, no, then just sit there and wait. Can't you see how busy everyone is? Don't take up our time if you have nothing to do. The little assistant rolled her eyes impatiently and turned away. Olivia sighed inwardly and had to sit where the assistant pointed. She waited silently for the makeup artist. The runway show would start in the evening. It was only 2 o'clock. In the first place, there was no rush, but every time it was Olivia's turn to make up, the makeup artist would be called away from other models. Olivia could naturally see through something, but she was here today to return the favor to Bruno, so it would be unnecessary for her to complain and just put up with it. It was almost 6 o'clock when the makeup artist arrived on Olivia's side. Just in time for dinner, the other models started eating. Olivia had to starve to get her makeup to match the finale dress, and the makeup artist applied it very carefully. With her makeup done, the little assistant came over and urged her to get dressed. Olivia got dressed and came out. With such a beautiful dress, she became gorgeous, attracting others' attention and admiration. Her dress was a high fashion gown for the fall, and it was just knee-length and elegant. Bruno could tell her size just by looking at her, so this dress fitted her perfectly as if it was made for her. Amidst a sea of envy and amazement, Olivia felt a malevolent glance, and she looked over to see a gorgeous-looking and mixed-race female model. The other plucked out a glance at her and left proudly. Olivia was slightly stunned. She thought this model looked familiar and was quite famous since she appeared on many magazine covers and all kinds of big shows. Her name seemed to be Mona. When others went away, a plain little girl in her early 20s came over with a glass of water and reminded Olivia in a small voice, "You must be careful. Mona is jealousy." Olivia smiled at her in a friendly way and tentatively asked, "What do you mean?" The little girl saw that Olivia was nice. She looked around, seeing that no one had noticed them, and explained, "She's the best of these models, and her strength is amazing. This clothing you are wearing is a limited edition of top cooperation designed by the studio and foreign big brand MT. When we first decided on the model, Mr. Hart wanted you to try, but Mr. Fox insisted that Mona wear it. As a result, the proportion of the dress was too tricky for Mona to wear, so Mr. Hart contacted you, to which Mona threw a private tantrum. Then why should I be careful?" The little girl said in all seriousness. "Mona hates 2 kinds of people, those who are better looking than her, and those who have a better figure than her." "You take up exactly." Olivia was embarrassed. How could I be better than her in shape? She's developing pretty well. She thought of the 2 balls she'd just seen. They should be E-size. Aesthetically speaking, things aren't as good as the bigger they are. You have to fit the dress. While Mona has big boobs and a big ass, she can't put on this dress. It's made to the golden ratio. Olivia found the little girl amazing and was interested in befriending her. "What's your name?" The little girl smiled. "I'm Catherine Baker. Just call me Kate." "Catherine, what are you doing with your physical strengths? Why are you holding a glass of water all this time? Is it because you want me to go and invite you back?" A disgruntled yelp came from the distance. "Here comes Joan," replied Kate, who raised her voice and trotted over. Olivia looked over to see Kate putting the glass of water to the model named Joan. The other woman touched the water and found that it wasn't the desired temperature, so she cursed and had an extremely bad attitude. But Kate seemed to have gotten used to it, apologizing for what she had done. She smiled at Joan to please her. Olivia was so hungry, but she had already put on her lipstick and didn't bother to eat. She was sitting in her seat quietly and waiting for the runway walk to begin. It was close to 8 o'clock when Bruno came over and looked Olivia over from head to toe. Then he said with satisfaction, "I knew it. I can't go wrong with my decision. You are perfect." Olivia clapped her hands uneasily. "I'm not a professional. Would it be a bad idea to turn the focus on me?" "It doesn't matter. This dress is designed to be open and free, not about extremely standard model steps. On the contrary, did you find that it is different from the usual dress? It's a little more on the everyday side, so even if you wear it out on the street, you won't feel awkward." Olivia was relieved to hear Bruno say that. Bruno glimpsed around, pulling Olivia into a corner. "There's something I need to tell you ahead of time. Your sister is here." In the meantime, Olivia said in an unhappy mood, "Jessica? Well, I didn't know about it before. My partner contacted her because she was the domestic spokesperson for MT. She came over as a special guest to attract people's attention." "It's okay. It didn't matter whether Jessica would see it or not. It was not like it's a bar or a cave. It was a regular show. Even if Greg would question her someday, she could be easy to explain." Bruno explained a few more things and gave Olivia a few precautions, one of which he emphasized twice. "You must be careful. This dress is a bit expensive. It will be displayed directly in the studio as a sample dress. Don't get it dirty, or it will be hard to wash." "Okay." After Bruno left, Olivia touched her cheek lightly. She didn't use her own set of makeup because of the sarcasm from the assistant. It was a little itchy at this conjuncture. It was likely to be an allergy. She wanted to scratch, but she was afraid of getting her foundation off. Tonight's runway show wasn't huge, but it was grand. Olivia wasn't well versed in this. She kept repeating Bruno's words of caution in her head, standing in the background at all times, and waiting for the staff to call her. She needed to go on stage 3 times. There were 2 ways to wear this outfit, and she had to show them both, and the last time, it was the return of all the models. After a few minutes, the staff waved at her to come on. The moment the lights hit Olivia, there was a resounding wow from the stage. "It's beautiful." That was the thought in everyone's mind. Everyone's attention was subconsciously following Olivia's figure. No one cared if she was walking formally or not. Unlike the professional models, she broke the stereotypical steps, and these steps looked innovative, lively, and relevant, causing a brighter scene in front of people's eyes. Olivia, despite her inexperience, was not shy at all, walking the long runway as if she was born to do it. Tonight's show was one of the few announcements Jessica had attended in such a long time. She was in a good mood, but when she saw Olivia on the stage, her smile faded. She gripped the fabric of her chair. She listened to the staff of investor organizers next to her exclaiming over Olivia and gritted her teeth. When the scout came to the White family, Olivia clearly said that she wouldn't be a star. What does that mean today? Is she ready to step into this industry and take place of her? Also, how did Olivia get to walk this show and still wear the finale outfit? Adrian Fox. Jessica made a sound to call out to the person next to her. Yes, Miss White, what's wrong? This guy isn't a professional model, so why is she on the catwalk? Jessica's tone was not good. Adrian looked at Olivia on stage and saw that Jessica didn't look too good. She hurried up to explain it. There's no one among the models who can match the suit, so Mona is your team's top flow. Why not focus her rather than an uninspired amateur? Are you deliberately trying to discredit the MT's reputation? Jessica was getting angrier. Mona had been a professional model. She had done some supporting roles and once was in a show with Jessica. They too had no conflict of interest, so they were somewhat familiar. No, Adrian was a little anxious as he was wronged badly. I know the temperament of the MT boss. If this thing is known to the MT headquarters, they will not be happy. Next, they would replace her and deny her on stage. Cut the image of her coming out, Jessica said indisputably. She mustn't let Olivia rise to prominence. Adrian was in a dilemma and said, but there aren't any more models to wear the dress. Jessica spoke arrogantly. I'm the spokesperson. I guess I'm entitled to that. Adrian brightened up and stammered. Of course. It's good. Time is of the essence. Miss White, now please go backstage with the staff. When Bruno heard that Jessica was replacing Olivia, he immediately refused. No, that's not in order. And that dress, Olivia just handled it so well. Didn't you see everyone's reaction? Adrian said bitterly. Of course I saw that, but Jessica wasn't happy. MT is a very important partner for us. There can't be any mistakes, and besides, Olivia is a student, while Jessica has a lot of fans and takes MT endorsement domestically. If she wears it, the dress will be sky high and will help our studio's publicity. How could Bruno not know that Jessica did it on purpose? He didn't expect Jessica to be so blatantly exclusive of Olivia. However, Adrian had a good point. The studio was run by Bruno and Adrian together, and Bruno couldn't do things exactly the way he wanted. After Olivia heard Bruno's euphemism, she caught sight of Jessica walking up with a proud look on her face. Looking at the clothes she was wearing, she said in a polite manner, Olivia, why didn't you tell me you are coming here for the show? If I knew, I would help you with it beforehand, but now I'm afraid of upsetting the brand, so I have to replace you and get on. Olivia figured that Jessica was bound to do something when she saw her here, but didn't expect that Jessica would be so blatantly to suppress her. Olivia's gaze swept quickly over Jessica's waist. Her mouth curved in an imperceptible curve, but she said nothing. She just turned around and went to the dressing room to undress. The dress was a little small for Jessica. Olivia's waist was a lightweight kind. Jessica's tummy didn't look fat since she often did exercise, but her hip bones are much wider than Olivia's, and it is irrefutable. Jessica was reluctant to admit that she wasn't as fit as Olivia. She sucked air in and managed to put on the clothes, which was so hard for her to breathe. Bruno rolled his eyes when he saw Jessica coming out of the dressing room. Suit on Jessica. It was much less effective. When Jessica appeared in front of the crowd, she was immediately met with gasps and applause. After all, celebrities and average people have different effects. Adrian watched everyone's reactions from the shadows and was pleased, which meant he had made the right decision. After the surprise, the atmosphere was somewhat different, and those in the seat below began to discuss it in secret. Was that dress worn by that very pretty young lady just now? You are right. I feel so familiar, but the dressing style is different. Oops, Jessica didn't dress as well as the one just now. It was all stunning, and now it doesn't look so good. I almost didn't recognize it as the same dress. Why didn't that pretty girl come out this round? Are you changing your look? I'm waiting to see her. Everyone thought Olivia didn't come out because she would wow the crowd later, but she didn't even show up again until the models returned. What the hell? Where's number 36? Why is she gone? Olivia came out with the number plate 36 around her waist. That's right. You said all the models, but there's obviously one less now? No explanation? You are fooling us. The grand finale was then worn by Jessica, the same outfit for two models, which never happened before. Could there be any scheming going on? Yes, hey, look, this dress is significantly smaller on Jessica. The fabric is bursting at the waist there, and it looks like she's fat and strong. Jessica walked more and more demoralized as she listened to the talk from the people below. To make matters worse, she heard a faint tearing sound. Her waist that had been tightened became relaxed. She had ripped her dress. Jessica was too busy covering the open line at her waist, with her hands on her waist, pretending to pose and hurrying to get down the stage. A sharp-eyed spectator noticed and yelled in discontent, "The clothes are torn. It's a runway accident." It was not only ticket buyers who were voicing their opinions, but also brand sponsors in the first row were becoming dissatisfied and even asking staff about number 36. They wondered why she didn't appear. The staff couldn't make sense of it and called on Adrian, who at first made up irrational explanations. But in the face of numerous questions and disgruntled audience, Adrian gradually became a bit overwhelmed and had to go after Bruno. Olivia was sitting backstage, hearing the commotion in front of the stage. The corners of her mouth turned up in pride. Jessica was supernaturally confident about her appearance, which was exactly her biggest mistake of the night. "It's gold that shines anyway." Bruno smiled and walked over to Olivia, selecting a simple dress from the hanger and slipping it to her. "The audience is now clamoring to see you. Change quickly and go round the stage with me." The viewers and sponsors recognized Olivia and were upset with Jessica, which made Jessica greatly embarrassed. At an angle no one else could see, her face was as ugly as one could imagine, but Jessica couldn't do anything to stop Olivia from getting on the stage. She raised her prominence under the support of her fans. It wouldn't be good for her image if she overdid it and was found out. Olivia re-emerged to soothe the crowd's discontent. In the corner of the stage, Jessica stared hard at Olivia on stage, and suddenly a voice rang out. "Jessica, you must be upset. I'm not feeling fair from your point of view. That girl is not a patch on you." Jessica knew Mona's nature and didn't hide her emotions much, saying coolly, "So what? The audience loves her. We can't change the audience's opinion, but it's easy to make her a little trouble." Immediately, Mona whispered in Jessica's ear, and Jessica listened, narrowing her eyes as she listened. Olivia's final appearance was a perfect end to the show. As the audience left one by one, the sponsors were in no hurry to leave, laughing and chatting about the collaboration. Suddenly, there was a roar on stage. Jessica's assistant grabbed Olivia's arm and put a serious look when she yelled out, "She's the one who ruined the dress. I found it when I replaced it for Jessica. The broken part was inside, and it wasn't open yet. Time was limited, so I thought I'd wait until it was over." "Don't you deliberately ruin the clothes to try to make trouble for Jessica?" The assistant was aggressive with Olivia. Olivia looked at the scraped and torn clothes around the waist part and calmly retorted, "You say I broke it. Do you have proof? It's only worn by you and Jessica. Jessica wouldn't want to embarrass herself by ruining it, so it would just be you. You must have done this with a grudge, because you were upset that Jessica took the clothes away from you. So you know that the dress was taken from me," Olivia said slowly. The assistant was stunned and she was momentarily speechless. Olivia's tone turned cold, her voice thick with impatience. "I checked this dress when I took it off. It was fine, whether you believe it or not." The assistant, shaken by Olivia's aura, shrank her shoulders, still daring not to relent. "You mean I slandered you? Why would I do that? You just need to ask yourself. Perhaps you want to divorce the sisterhood between me and my sister?" Olivia's witty outweighed. A surprise was on the faces of people around who heard the news. This beautiful amateur model is Jessica's sister. Even more surprised was Adrian, who was a little confused. If Olivia is Jessica's sister, why is Jessica targeting Olivia so much? Seeing that things were not going as expected, Jessica came over and said with a gentle face, "There's no need to quarrel. The clothes are broken. Mr. Fox, is it okay if I pay for this dress for my sister?" When Adrian was mentioned by Jessica, she replied, Sure. I didn't ruin the dress. Why should sis pay for me?" Olivia was not happy to and stated her opinion. Jessica was just trying to prove her guilty. A model inflamed and agitated the people. "Young lady, your sister is kind enough to help you. How can you be so ignorant? Do we have to find out the reason? Don't you know admit it yet?" Everyone was certain that Olivia had ruined the dress. The sponsors took this into account, and one boss spoke up generously. "It's just a suit of clothes. It doesn't matter. I'll pay for it." Jessica was full of pride in her eyes. It didn't matter if someone paid for Olivia or not. All that mattered was that this farce would give these sponsors a bad impression of Olivia. They would think she was jealous and of bad character. This would shut out the idea of making Olivia a star in the future. Olivia was at a loss for words. This place was not the police station and didn't look at the evidence. Unfortunately, Bruno had just gone to take a partner back to the hotel, and at the moment there was no one to speak for her. Actually, she was not completely innocent. The dress, she did tamper with it a bit. She pinned the threads a few times purposely to make trouble for Jessica on stage. Otherwise, Jessica wouldn't have been able to hold her dress up. However, she didn't ruin the lining. Bruno said it would be used as a sample afterward, and she was careful not to ruin other parts. A chipped thread stitch would be uninfluential. Jessica probably didn't expect her to tamper with it, but tried to use it to throw mud at her. Olivia was serious, and the atmosphere was a bit stiff. Jessica was so good-naturedly preparing to write a check when a bodyguard suddenly came over and gave Olivia an object. Olivia was confused to look at the memory card in her hand and was looking over the bouncer. However, the bouncer turned and left. His upright figure not even registered in the eyes of these rich bosses, making it hard to imagine what kind of person his owner was. Since someone sent this specifically to Olivia, it means that the memory card had some important contents. Olivia kept calm and suggested looking at the contents of the memory card. It was a normal request, so people agreed. Soon, the contents were clear. It was a camera's memory card, with a crop of what turned out to be Jessica's assistant standing in a hidden corner and scraping the clothes with a nail. Jessica was reluctant to believe what was happening with her eyes wide open. The assistant also panicked. She didn't realize she had been caught on camera, even if she was being so careful. Jessica was quick to react and immediately looked incredibly angry at her assistant. "When did your mind get so bad?" she said. "I trust you so much, but you framed my sister." "Jessica, I'm sorry. I just don't like her. I'm sorry." As things turned out, the assistant had to take all the blame. After all, she was just a little person. And if Jessica got a bad reputation, the company would fire her. The evidence proved Olivia's innocence, and those who had just sarcastically mocked Olivia didn't say a word. Jessica forestalled. "You set up Olivia, and I'm not going to let you off. Go explain yourself to Eve. You won't be my assistant anymore." That was extremely decent, both as a reflection of her impartiality and as a way to get justice for Olivia. Olivia watched the playbook Jessica and her assistant had played, but wasn't about to let it end there. She smiled softly, looked at Jessica's assistant, and asked, "As I recall, today was the first time we met, right?" Yes. So, can you explain why you dislike me? If it's my fault, I can apologize." The assistant was stunned. Nothing else, but because Jessica didn't like you. But she couldn't answer it in that way. She replied, "Anyway, just don't like you." The sponsor bosses were all smart people. They had known what these words meant. Since they had never met before, there was no existing grudge and only one possibility could make sense. Jessica ordered the assistant. They didn't realize Jessica was so far away from the persona established, mean, and narrow-minded. The look in everyone's eyes changed a bit, but they all saw through it without speaking anything. Olivia saw that she had achieved her goal and didn't continue. Jessica could see that, for sure, and was a little anxious to defend herself. However, she was afraid of making things worse, because no one else said she was wrong. She held her breath and gave her assistant a hard stare. This idiot can't do anything right, and she's just getting in her way. Instead of achieving her goal, Jessica invariably made the crowd feel better about Olivia. One of the bosses was quite fond of Olivia and came out to smooth things over. "She's just an ignorant and unimportant employee. Just fire her. Don't disturb people's spirits." "This show was really good today, Adrian. This new model is great. Signed with any company yet?" Adrian was about to reply when she was interrupted. "Guys." The general manager of the venue stood 3 paces away and raised his voice. Then he said, "Excuse me, our master has asked Miss White to come upstairs for a chat." The models looked at Jessica with surprise and envy. Jessica was used to this kind of thing. After every event, there would be all kinds of big bosses who invited her for dinner in the name of every possibility. But today she was a little flattered. Today's runway show venue was held in the downtown of Corver, and every inch of this land could be expensive. The general manager personally came out to invite, which reflected Jessica's good reputation. Moreover, the social status of the general manager would equal a lot of money, and the master he talked about must be a very powerful person. Jessica smiled her perfect smile and swiped at Olivia with some disdain. She meant that was the difference between the two of them. In the meantime, the general manager said, "I'm sorry, Miss White was not referring to you. I meant Olivia." All of them sucked in a breath. Before anyone could reflect, the general manager added, "Oh, since the runway studio and Miss White know each other, according to my host, the venue rental and the money for drinks would be free today." This was the largest show in Corver. The rental for a few hours tonight would be up to 10 million, not to mention the high demand for lighting props and top wine and cake. The bosses who were interested in Olivia had all given up contracting with her. It was obvious that this girl was covered. They thought she was as simple as a white paper, but her backstage was so amazing that it was lucky they hadn't done anything yet, or else they didn't how they would have died. It had to be a powerful man to own this downtown site. Jessica's ostentatiousness was so hilarious at the moment that she could even hear snickering in the dark. Olivia followed the general manager to the upstairs innermost booth, unaware of what she was going to do. She pushed the door and saw the man inside. She showed a smile and said, "So it's you. Who else do you think it is?" Hugo asked with great interest, holding a glass of wine in his hand. "I don't know, but it makes sense when I see you. Thanks for helping me out." Hugo's agency had the best resources and amazing income, so it was natural that he became the master of the show. Olivia looked grateful. "You were the one who just sent someone to give me a memory card, right? I saw that you were bullied, so I gave you a hand. After all, you are Vincent's fiancé. If you were being made to suffer within my realm, he'll never forgive me." Olivia was a little guilty, as if Vincent's friends were prone to thinking that she was was regarded as an important person by Vincent. Because of Vincent, she had got a lot of favors. Anyway, it was a good thing, so she wouldn't be foolish to reveal it. Olivia thanked Hugo again before leaving the place. After Olivia disappeared, Hugo took a slow sip of his drink and said slowly, "Come out. How long are you trying to hide?" Vincent came out of the lounge. Hugo glanced at him and asked, "When did you like to do a good deed and not leave a name?" It was clearly all his merits, but he had to let Hugo take the title of the good guy. In the meantime, Vincent was silent, even the air pressure around him wrapped in a heavy dose of displeasure. If she knew he was the one who helped her, she would be even more arrogant to come out and make trouble in the future. Why would this woman be so restless, running around and taking all kinds of jobs? He saw the amazement in the eyes of people when they were looking at Olivia. He even wanted to take those eyes out. Vincent was upset about Olivia coming to the show without telling him, but after all, she was his now, and since she was his, he had to protect her. Only he can bully her, others get killed. Vincent opened his lips. The people who just brought her trouble and gossip all cleaned up. I go to clean up? It's your venue. Vincent glanced at him. Yuri not holding shares? Got it. Hugo held back and promised. Vincent was the big boss, so he had to follow his order as the second boss. This venue had been Vincent's private property, and the show was sort of a partnership between him and Hugo. GK Group, the world's largest group in terms of GDP production over these years, was involved in every aspect of the industry, big and small, but it never went for the entertainment industry. This reflected the insistence of Master Barton. The older generations were more feudal in their thinking ways and believed that the entertainment industry could be too impetuous and deep to get involved. Vincent naturally wouldn't go against his grandfather's wishes to his face, but why not make money from it? So he took his assets privately and worked with Hugo, who had been very experienced in this sector. The two people were there to talk business, but none knew that Vincent just happened to bump into his restless fiancée. Soon after Olivia returned to the Barton family, Vincent returned. She heard the noise and poured him water eagerly. Vincent finished his water and opened his lips leisurely. I didn't know that my fiancée was so powerful that she could be a model. Olivia gritted her teeth under her breath. She knew Hugo would tell him. With a smile on her face, she explained, "I was just doing a little favor for a friend." Vincent looked up at her, coolly, and Olivia was furious. As the atmosphere froze, the sound of "I'm hungry" burst out. Vincent froze and looked down at her stomach. Olivia was too busy covering it, but nothing was helping, and the grunting sounded again. Eventually, Vincent said unhappily, "You haven't eaten yet?" I forgot to eat." She couldn't feel the sense of hunger before she came back. However, seeing him, she was starting to feel hungry. It was almost midnight when Gbert and the cooks were asleep. Olivia said, "I'll just go get some bread. I don't have any of that junk stuff here." Vincent looked bad, but turned his wheelchair and went to the kitchen. "Go take a shower and come down for dinner later." "Yes." Olivia was overjoyed, wondering whether he was going to cook. The starvation was worth it. When Olivia went back to her room to remove her makeup, she realized that her cheeks were excessively red and that she was still allergic. This unpleasant face, Olivia really didn't want Vincent to see it, but the thought of him cooking pushed her to swallow her mouth water naturally. So she went downstairs. Vincent fixed his gaze on her face and frowned at first sight. Olivia touched her face in embarrassment. "I'm allergic to cosmetics. I'll go back to my room later and put some salve on." Vincent pursed his lips and raised his chin at her. "You have dinner first." Olivia immediately focused on his freshly made pasta and sat down happily, picking up her chopsticks to eat. She just took the first bite and instantly felt happiness. How could this man's cooking be so good? If she got rich later, she'd love to hire him as a cook. But she was just daydreaming. How could this dream come true unless Vincent went bankrupt? As Olivia gulped down her noodles, Vincent disappeared for a few moments and reappeared with a bottle of potion and a packet of cotton swabs in his hands. Seeing that her bowl had bottomed out, he hooked his hand at her. "Come here." Olivia walked over to him and saw him trying to wipe her face. Then she said coyly, I'll do it myself. Don't move." Vincent yawned lightly, dipping a cotton swab in the salve and rubbing it over the reddened area of her face. They were so close that Olivia could even feel the warmth from the man's body and the hot air spilling from his nose. She ducked her eyes and looked at the floor, feeling she was lucky that her face was red, or it would have been embarrassing. There happened to be an unexpected look between their eyes. Vincent's hand paused, and he looked at her watery lips for a moment, a little thirsty. Vincent was used to being dictatorial, so he just did what he wanted. He lifted Olivia's chin, pressed the back of her head, and kissed her affectionately. Zach saw two people kissing in the living room when he got up at midnight to go to the bathroom. He rolled his little hands over his eyes and pouted unhappily the next second, toddling to Olivia's side with small steps. As a result, no one noticed him at all. Zach felt he was neglected, so his cute face bulged into a patty, gave Vincent a hard stare, and reached out to tug Olivia's clothes. Olivia's brain was awake and gave Vincent a hard shove, looking down in panic at the little guy who was at her feet. "Zach, are you awake?" Vincent looked coldly at Zach. What an imp who troubled him. The little bastard squeezed into Olivia's arms and wrapped her arms around her, despite the unpleasant face of his titular father. Olivia had to carry Zach back to his room, leaving Vincent alone in the living room. Bruno was taken aback after hearing Adrian's account. Adrian was sad. "You didn't tell me that little girl was so powerful, and now many people in the studio have to be fired. Several of the models in the model group have also been forced out." Bruno was confused. "I don't know. Do they have to be fired? I can't refuse it. I even don't know which group she belongs to. Our biggest investors and suppliers directly call me to do it, and we're still not allowed to leak the message to Olivia." Adrian sighed and went to draft the letter of dismissal. Mona's heart was heavy when she overheard Adrian and Bruno talking outside. She left when she offered Jessica a plan, so she didn't know what happened after that. "So Olivia is the one with the backing?" For just a moment, Mona snorted in disdain, not taking it seriously. She asked himself that no matter how big the backstage was, could it be bigger than hers? Since that meeting, Dunn had privately asked Olivia out a few more times to talk to her, but had been refused for a variety of reasons. She had to be assertive to make Dunn fear her. She determined Dunn's future. Dunn noticed there was no discussion and tried to please her, tripping Jessica and her daughter up and helping Greg get the land. When Greg gets the land, he'll be impressed with her. In contrast to Olivia's reluctance to meet Dunn, Jessica was desperate to meet him. Since Olivia kept in touch with Dunn, Greg had been much nicer to Olivia, and his attitude towards Jessica and her mother had become worse. Every time her father came back after he went out to see Dunn or took a call from Dunn, he would lash out at her and her mother. "No need to think, it's Olivia who's the culprit for this. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you're in bed with that dirty old man Dunn and have done Greg a little favor? You just made it on a piece of land. Jessica can do it, too. Father's favor could only belong to her." That afternoon, Jessica finally asked Dunn out on a date. She certainly wasn't going to lower herself to use her body for gains like Olivia. If he could give her credit for the land, she had a big social circle and various resources at her disposal to make a deal with Dunn. After talking for a while, Dunn, the old sophisticate, figured out what Jessica was thinking. Jessica's offer was indeed tempting, but it was not as tempting as the evidence Olivia had that could kill him. Dunn could also see Olivia's indifference at this time. He was on fire because he never ever suffered from this kind of frustration. He was held back from moving by a powerless student. Dunn's eyes crossed over Jessica, and a wonderful idea came into his mind. He realized that instead of fighting alone and being subjected to Olivia, he might as well find an ally. Dunn's face was kind superficially and got up to pour Jessica a cup of tea, saying good-naturedly, "Greg has 2 good daughters. Each is so devoted to her father's business. I've been very attentive about that plot of land all this time. Specifically speaking, there are lots of things, and we'll talk in detail while enjoying the tea." Jessica was pleased to see her goal was hopeful and relaxed, taking a few sips of her tea. 10 minutes later, Jessica began to feel dizzy. With a twinge in her heart, she had sensed that something was wrong. Then she got up and tried to leave, but she fell on the couch instead. When Jessica woke up again, she found herself lying in bed with nothing on her. As if she had been splashed with cold water, she sobered instantly, sitting up in bed and pulling up the blanket beside her to cover herself. "Don't worry, I didn't touch you." Dunn's voice rang out. Jessica turned her head around to see Dunn sitting on the couch. She gnashed her teeth in hatred and said, "You bastard, what did you do to me?" Dunn smiled sinisterly. "My good niece, how could you take so different attitude to me? Just now, you were speaking a mouthful of Uncle Dunn?" With his own phone in his hand, he flipped through the freshly taken photos as he said, "Nice body. If I'm not able to protect myself, I'd really like to get you laid." Jessica was shocked with cold sweat and stared at Dunn's phone, not willing to believe her suspicions. "You took naked pictures of me? Smart." Dunn stood up and walked slowly over to Jessica, showing her his phone. There were a dozen photos in the album, from all angles, all of which he just snapped. "I'll be honest with you. Your good sister has a hold on me right now, so do whatever you can to get that evidence back, or I'm just going to post these pictures on the internet. You're a star, and if these things go public on the internet, your whole life can be ruined." Jessica silently learned Dunn's words, looking shocked. So, Olivia didn't sleep with Dunn at all. Olivia had evidence that proved Dunn guilty and threatened Dunn to do something for her. Jessica's coming here today was like throwing herself into a dangerous place. She looked up at the nude photos on his phone and panicked. No, these pictures must not be circulated. She took a deep breath. What evidence is Olivia holding? Dunn knew the photos were as deadly to Jessica as the evidence was to him, but he wasn't afraid Jessica knew the truth and told her all about it. "As far as I know, Olivia has Haley's medical records and the clothes she wore back in the day. If you find them out and give them to me, I'll delete the photos immediately." Jessica closed her eyes. "I know." Jessica spent the next 2 days finding out what Dunn did back then. Then she found Olivia went to a remote town the other day and met with a doctor named Amanda Fox. Those proofs were the ones that Amanda gave to Olivia. Jessica had a bit of a headache for she couldn't guess where Olivia would be hiding them. She'd been to Olivia's room on the slide but found nothing. She didn't dare tell Carol about being photographed naked by Dunn. It was something she was too ashamed to talk about. Even if her mother knew, she didn't have solutions, and in the end, Jessica would face nothing but a scolding. When Jessica was at her wit's end, things seemed to be hopeful. Greg's birthday was coming up. In past years, Greg would have a birthday party at the house. house. The White family had a big enough courtyard for the elders to chat and drink tea. The juniors would be enjoying pool parties, dancing, and barbecues. Carol ran all of these things, and this year was no exception. Carol and Jessica used to resent Olivia showing up at parties to show her competitiveness. So on the day of Greg's birthday, they would do everything in their power to keep Olivia out of the limelight. Olivia also knew how to be sensible, always giving Greg his gift early and then staying in her room to study or watch a play. This year, Jessica mentioned it at the dinner time that on the day of Greg's birthday, she wanted to push the birthday cake cart with Olivia and came out to celebrate Greg's birthday. Greg gave a somewhat surprised "oh" and then nodded pleasantly. All right. The bidding for that land in the western suburb was set on next week. Dunn said he had faith in it, so Greg was in a good mood lately. After the development of this land by the White family, Greg would rise to fame in a couple of years. Listening to Jessica and Greg's conversation, Olivia just enjoyed her meal in silence. After dinner, Jessica took Olivia by the arm before Olivia returned to her room. Jessica guiltily said, "Ollie, a lot of things happened recently and caused some conflict between us. Sometimes I get anxious and not very nice to you, but you should know what I have done is for your good. Last time at the show, I never thought my assistant would do it. I've fired her. Can you forgive me? For her good?" Olivia almost laughed out loud when she heard this, but she still looked amused. Wasn't Jessica putting on a show? Olivia could do the same. Olivia pretended to be moved and held Jessica's hand. "There is no need to say. We are sisters. Is there any possibility we loathe each other? Then we'll go together tomorrow and pick a cake to prepare a wonderful birthday party for Dad." Olivia knew at first glance that Jessica was plotting something again and nodded. 2 days later, the White family hosted Greg's birthday party. The White family had many relatives, but none came this time because of emergencies. Greg had an elder brother and a young sister. Both of them lived in the capital, several provinces away from Culver City, so they merely got to see each other. Moreover, after Greg's father died, his mother took turns living in her son's homes and lived with Barry White, Greg White's elder brother, for the time being. They were planning to come over this time for Greg's birthday, but Barry's daughter-in-law was about to give birth, and Greg's sister was taking care of her daughter who was about to take her entrance exams for college. Therefore, they couldn't go for the party. Olivia was relieved to hear that her grandmother and the two families wouldn't be coming over. These relatives didn't like her because of her humble origins, so she needn't deal with them. Carol invited many business partners to the party. This time, if all things went well, after succeeding in the bid, the company would pay attention to financing. It was a critical time to bring in investors. Quite a few people were here. The White family was buzzing inside and out. Greg and Carol were exchanging pleasantries with friends. Jessica was outside greeting her younger peers. Olivia followed her father in greeting some of the elders before sitting on the couch for a snack. Amidst the party, Jessica came over to call Olivia, and they rolled out a 5-tier cake from the kitchen. The junior together sang happy birthday to Greg. When people enjoyed themselves, someone came up behind Olivia and whispered, "Ma'am." Olivia turned her head in surprise. "What are you doing here?" Andy answered honestly. "Second Master asked me to deliver the gift. On the day of your father's birthday, although Second Master does not appear, he must show his caring for the elder." Vincent and Olivia's relationship did not go public, but if there was no message at all, the White family would be unhappy about this and blame it on Olivia. Olivia, not expecting Vincent to be so considerate, nodded and led Andy to Greg's side. "Dad, this is Vincent's fellow." Upon hearing Vincent, Greg immediately paid attention. Andy raised his hand and 2 servants behind him stepped forward with the gift. "The Second Master heard about Mr. White's birthday, so he asked us to send a gift to Mr. White. Good luck and live a happy family." The red cloth was uncovered. Inside the box was a piece of fine nephrite jade, in the shape of jade ruby, meaning that everything was as it should be. People who saw the gift all had their mouths slightly agape with surprise and sighs. Even if Olivia did not know such jade, she could tell by everyone's reactions how rare and valuable the jade was. Greg was pleased with the gift and made a few official remarks politely. He smiled and gesticulated towards Olivia to entertain Andy. Andy looked at the time and whispered to Olivia, "Is ma'am going back to the Second Masters tonight? How about I wait for you outside?" Olivia tilted her head and caught sight of Jessica, who was frequently looking over at her. Then her beautiful eyes shined for a moment. She shook her head. "I'm not going back today. Don't wait for me." "Okay." After Andy left, Olivia noticed Jessica's relief and sneered on the sly. She would like to see what Jessica was up to. When it was time for a toast, Jessica pressed down on the glass Greg held up. "Dad, you have high blood pressure. It's not good for you to drink too much alcohol. Ollie and I are grown up, and as a token of our sincerity, let us toast uncles on behalf of you." Jessica's suggestion was made in front of everyone. The others overheard and talked about it, praising Greg for having a thoughtful daughter. Olivia was unexpectedly involved in the toast. She had to go together with Jessica. As she was speculating about Jessica's intention, Jessica happened to make her intention clear. "Gee, Ollie, I forgot I've had the flu for 2 days. I took cephalosporin at lunch, so drinking can be risky," Jessica said abruptly as she was about to drink. Olivia looked at the whole bottle of foreign wine in the hand of the servant who was next to her, so she would have to drink all of this? Instead, someone came out to smooth things over. It's okay if you sip it. Young girls can't drink too much. Uncle, you may have no idea that my sister is a good drinker, Jessica said with a smile. The other was curious. Oh, then I'm going to see it today. Olivia was overestimated by Jessica and had no choice but to drink. Jessica was intentionally trying to get Olivia drunk, and well, Olivia was good at it. When she was about to drink half of a bottle of wine, Olivia wasn't going to drink anymore. When she had a chance, she shifted her body several times, pretending to be drunk. Then she said to Jessica, "Sis, I'm dizzy." As soon as she finished, she got drunk and leaned on Jessica's body. Jessica was so proud of herself that she said to the guests, "My sister is drunk. I'll help her back to her room." Carol took in Jessica's series of antics and couldn't help but lower her voice as she asked, "What the hell you're doing tonight? Yuri Strange." "Mom, I know what I'm doing. Just leave me alone." Jessica didn't have time to explain to Carol in detail and helped Olivia upstairs. Going into Olivia's room, Jessica put Olivia on the bed, then went out and came back. "Ollie, drink this cup of tea and sober up, or you'll have a headache tomorrow." Olivia was, actually, still sober. She opened her eyes unconsciously and took the tea. "Jessie, I'm thirsty. Can you pour a glass of water for me?" When Jessica turned around, Olivia poured the wake-up tea into the carpet. Jessica came back and saw that the glass was empty, which made her feel at ease. She added what would make people even more drunk-like to that cup of tea. People who drank it would feel like you were dreaming, and you would wake up the next day with a broken memory. After a while, she saw that it was about time and whispered to Olivia, "Ollie, where's your phone?" Well, Olivia fidgeted and didn't say anything. Jessica asked again before she answered confusedly, "Hanger, in the bag." Jessica felt Olivia's phone in the bag hanging on the hanger. Then she unlocked it with Olivia's fingerprint and looked through pictures. Olivia didn't have too many unnecessary photos on her phone, so Jessica quickly found the pictures of the medical records Dunn had said. After a few minutes of flipping through the pages, while finding nothing else, Jessica directly asked Olivia, "Ollie, the girl named Haley, where did you put her stuff?" Hearing that, Olivia could understand what Jessica was up to. Jessica and Dunn became grasshoppers on a string. She came up with an idea and pretended to be confused. "What? Where are Haley's medical records and her clothes? Where did you put them?" Jessica continued to ask patiently. Olivia rolled over and muttered that, was left it in the dorm. Jessica almost squealed with delight. She finally heard the words from her. She covered her mouth and held back her excitement, first deleting the photos on Olivia's phone, then secretly exiting Olivia's room and sending someone to Olivia's dorm overnight to retrieve the stuff. She only had one night and couldn't wait a moment. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Jessica got the stuff and immediately contacted Dunn for a meeting. Olivia stood by the window and watched Jessica drive away, with her phone spinning in her hand and a gleeful look in her eyes. Jessica thought she would be able to trade what she had in her hand for those nude photos. However, when Dunn looked at what she was carrying, his joyful expression immediately turned to be darkened face. He grabbed Jessica's neck with such force that he seemed to strangle her. "Are you kidding me?" Jessica hadn't expected Dunn to do anything to her. She flushed red from the strangulation and clasped his hand in fear. Let me off. Yuri the one who said, "You wanted this, and I've got it for you." Dunn snorted and tossed Jessica away like a piece of trash. "It's fake." "No way." Jessica stared. "You mean I'm not clear about it?" He gave Jessica a rather thoughtful look. Either she had deliberately faked it to try to change the photos back, or she had been muddled by Olivia. Either way, it made him see what Jessica could do, and he had no desire to continue their pact. He pulled out his phone and said coldly, "It seems you're no better than that. I overestimated you." Jessica jumped up and grabbed his hand. "No, don't send those photos. I'm begging you. Just give me a few more days. I'm sure I'll get you what you want. 1 week, then. If I don't see what I want by the end of the week, we are doomed together." Dunn gave an ultimatum in the face of Jessica, who begged him. And Dunn looked at Jessica, who looked like a lamb to the slaughter. "To get your father that land, I've been tired these days and spent a lot. Don't you think, as a daughter, you should help your father out?" Jessica felt like a fish on the chopping block. Though she was happy to come over and thinking that she would get away with it, she didn't get any advantage of it. Instead, he taught her a lesson, and she suffered a great loss. Gritting her teeth in pain, she wrote down a check for millions of dollars, with much hatred to cut Olivia down to 1,000 pieces and skin her. She paid for it, Dunn strived for it, and Olivia got all the credit. Jessica would puke in every minute she thought about it. By the time Jessica got home, Olivia was gone and never returned for the next 3 days. Jessica was like an ant in a hot pan, who was anxious about the situation and afraid to do anything rash. Olivia already knew Jessica's intentions, so she was not going to stay in the White family and wait to be set up. She was nesting in Vincent's house for the next few days. The so-called evidence left in the dormitory was nothing more than a blindfold for Jessica. Dunn was a cunning and sneaky person. Olivia was not sure whether she could beat him down or not, so she prepared a fake copy in advance when she got the evidence, just in case of accidents. In the end, it came in handy. The real evidence, of course, she chose to put in the safest place, in Vincent's house. Who would dare to search Second Master's house? Olivia's eyes glittered with slyness. She looked like a successful kitten. Vincent looked at Olivia, who was lounging lounging on the couch and playing Lego with Zach. Then he said slowly, "You seem to be free over these days." "Do I?" Olivia blinked and looked at him blankly. "Yes." Olivia thought about it carefully. It seemed to be true. She used to run out and work various jobs to earn money when she had free time. But since she was engaged to Vincent, she would meet him or someone related to him whenever she went to work part-time, which greatly discouraged her from earning money. He didn't say it, although he was not happy about her going out to make money through her laborious work. Olivia knew the pros and cons. Vincent was her biggest financer. She should serve him well and be a good fiancé. When the two persons broke off the engagement, he would give her more than enough money. Olivia felt somehow bitter at the thought of the future in which she would have nothing to do with Vincent. Ignoring the discomfort in heart, she blinked hard and trotted over to the man. "The day after tomorrow is the day for the bit of the land in the western suburb, you know?" Vincent responded carelessly. "Well, I hear that your father is very well prepared. And do you think he can take that land?" Vincent thought a moment and said, "Yes." Dunn had given her assurance that he would help the White family get the land. Olivia was still much relieved after hearing Vincent's affirmative answer. The man should be trusted as he said yes. As it turned out, 2 days later, the land bid went to the White family. Greg was very happy. In his mind, the success was all because of Olivia, who, in his opinion, was no longer like an unnecessary daughter, but a great heroine. Dunn had been busy with the business for a long period and had spared no efforts to fulfill Olivia's request. He called Olivia as soon as the bidding session was over. Olivia listened to Dunn on the other end of the line, who was carefully pleading her. She replied casually, "Well, I keep my word. I'll give those things to you. I sent it overseas as a precaution, so it will take a few days to get back. I'll give it to you when it arrives." Considering Jessica's failure, Dunn didn't trust Olivia. "Where did you send it? I'll pick it up myself." "I can't tell you that." Dunn's tone changed. "Then how can I make sure you aren't framing me again? What should I do if you turn over the evidence?" "Uncle Dunn, you seem to have forgotten one thing." Olivia sneered. "Now, you're subject to me. I'm the rule maker." Olivia had already hung up without waiting for Dunn to say anything else. She looked down at the evidence on the table and pursed her lips, a look of determination crossing her eyes. Olivia said, "Haley, thank you for helping me, and I'll help you reveal the truth. People who killed you would get what was coming to them." Vincent was determined to see Dr. Johnson every month since he was able to get on his feet. It had been over a month since last time. When Gbert mentioned it, Vincent looked at the time. "I will be there today." Olivia knew from Gbert's few words that Vincent was going to examine his leg. She was going to follow him. She told Vincent seriously, "I help heal your legs every day, and I have a right to know your condition." Vincent quirked an eyebrow, the tip of his tongue against his teeth, and finally agreed. "You can go if you want." Andy looked complicated, not understanding the second master's thoughts. Dr. Johnson was not like Dr. Clark there. It was not easy for them to lie to Madam. Dr. Johnson could be seriously diagnosing and treating the second master. The second master would be ordered to stand up and walk there. If she were here, she would see through the second master. Unable to figure out what the second master was planning, Andy had to give up his words. Dr. Johnson, a nationally known surgeon, ran a private clinic, which was as large and profitable as a regular hospital. To treat his leg in the first place and to hide the fact that he could stand up, Vincent invested the clinic and became one of the masters. In front of Dr. Johnson's office, Vincent asked Olivia, who was pushing the wheelchair behind him, "Are you sure you want to go in?" Olivia nodded her head without thinking. Of course. Mockery flashed in Vincent's eyes for a while, but he said nothing. When he went in, Dr. Johnson, in his lab coat, was looking at the x-rays. When he saw Vincent, he hurried to stand up and said with a very respectful attitude, "You are coming." "Yes." Dr. Johnson pointed to the next room. "Old place, all the same. I already had the nurse disinfect all the appliances. All the facilities are new." The next second, Dr. Johnson looked over at Olivia and saw her pushing Vincent's wheelchair. Subconsciously, he thought of her as a servant. Although somewhat surprised because the servant wasn't Andy, he knew to behave himself and held back his curiosity about Vincent's personal life. He just said to Olivia, "I'll change into disinfecting clothes. You push the second master to that room, help him take off his pants, and help him lie down on the bed." Olivia froze and reacted for several seconds. "Pants off?" She must have misheard. Dr. Johnson casually replied, "Yeah, I had to check his legs, with his pants off of course." Olivia looked to Vincent, who was staring back at her in a good-natured way. He was not even trying to help her. Usually, he took a shower in the bathroom or did something else, but he didn't ask for any help. Olivia decided to ignore the request and pushed Vincent into what Dr. Johnson said was the exam room, saying, "You should be able to take off pants yourself." Vincent wasn't overbearing. He was not going to ask her to do it, so he merely grunted his approval and lifted his hands. Olivia thought she'd be able to take her mind off things. It meant just taking off his pants. There were panties anyway. When she had sex with him, she already had seen. Would she feel shame to do it? As soon as the thought crossed her mind, she was proved wrong. She saw Vincent buckling on the belt, his fingertips on the hidden buckle. After a snap, the belt came loose and drew off. Olivia watched him go through a series of motions and couldn't help but make a swallowing motion when Vincent's hand went to the zipper of his pants. Suddenly, she turned to be rational. I'll wait outside and let Andy come in and help you. Remember to repeat what the doctor will tell you. Quickly finishing that sentence, Olivia went out without looking back. Vincent quirked an eyebrow and failed to hold back his laughter. His chest would be up and down together with his laughter. Dr. Johnson, who happened to come in, froze at the door. He seemed to have seen the Arabian Nights until Vincent's cold eyes swept over to him. He came back to his senses and hurried forward. After a quick checkup, Dr. Johnson was surprised and said, "You've been recovering fast lately. Are you using some kind of medication? Daily foot massage and soak. Does that count?" Dr. Johnson's eyes lit up and he quickly said, "Of course. It's a slow process to cure your leg disease, but you've never had much patience to try it. Apart from your resilient body, regular massage is very helpful, and you've finally figured it out." Vincent wanted to say that he hadn't figured it out. He'd been forced to do it and didn't even know where she'd gotten the willpower to carry on for so long. But the words were just echoed in his heart and kept in his mind. Originally, Dr. Johnson had a few more treatments, but after seeing Vincent go back and forth, he looked incredulous. "Amazing. Compared to last time, you're much better. If everything goes well, do much more practice, and you'll be able to walk normally. It seems that the massage and pedicure are conducive to you, so carry on with it." Dr. Johnson recollected the time he first took over Vincent. It was a real headache for him, and he didn't know what to do. The leg bones were all broken without consciousness. The patient, as well, was also temperamental and uncooperative. The good news was that the pain was gone. Very few people ever fully recovered from a situation like that, and it was truly a miracle. Vincent was also feeling better lately. He walked much easier and didn't hurt as much as he used to be tired. It was all thanks to Olivia. Vincent thought of Olivia, who was carefully comparing packs, dispensing medication in proportions, and looking through acupuncture point books every night. Then he got a little disoriented for a moment. Not only did she carry on the leg massage seriously, but she also kept saying positive things like the heavens will send a great task upon you, and you will suffer first. The world is full of miracles. The terminally ill are cured, and you will recover one day. She even read stories about chicken soup for the soul to encourage him. It was like she was brainwashing him. Many times he detested her chattering, but never told her to shut up. And over time, he had slowly figured out what she meant. He didn't want to go to the psychiatrist, so she never mentioned it again. However, she didn't give up. Since he didn't go to the psychiatrist, she purged him in a different way and astoundingly purified his darkened mind. It was clear that she could be smart, yet she was so stupid that he didn't know what to do with her. Olivia saw Vincent coming out of the room and immediately stepped forward to ask, "How's it going? What did the doctor say?" Vincent looked at her without expression. Olivia opened her mouth and stammered as she continued, "Actually, it doesn't matter. It can't be getting better anytime soon, and you should not get discouraged." "Very well." Olivia was interrupted. She spoke out in confusion. "Well," Vincent explained, "the doctor said I am pretty good in recovery. With diligent practice, I'll be on my feet in no time." Vincent was somehow shocked by himself. He had no idea why he didn't want to keep lying to her. "Really?" Olivia covered her heart. She was undoubtedly feeling the accelerated heartbeat and said in an impassioned tone with normal decibels, "I knew it. I'm sure I can help you recover. I may have a gift for being a doctor." She might be good at bragging. Thinking this, Vincent nodded sardonically. What a shame that the medical profession missed a shining star. At dinner, after Olivia put food on Zach's plate, she said to Vincent, "For the next few days, I will not come over." "Why?" "Because there was an uphill battle to fight. It's not a good idea for me to stay at your place all the time," Olivia said casually. "I have to be home for a few days. Summer break is around the corner, and I've chosen a tutor before, so I want to start on the graduation project soon." Vincent gave her a profound look and said nothing more, which meant a promise. Dunn was disturbed. He had a hunch that Olivia wouldn't give him the evidence anymore. Either did it or left it. If Olivia engaged in tricks, he would be disinclined to wait. He had a hard time getting the position where he was in and would never allow it to be ruined by someone else. Olivia returned to the White family, which made Jessica relaxed. Olivia stayed with Vincent before, so Jessica didn't have a chance to achieve her goal at all. It was close to the deadline Dunn gave her, and Jessica was so distraught that she couldn't think of solutions. She had planned to play hardball and push Olivia to hand those things over. On the rare occasion that Greg didn't go out socially, the family sat down to dinner in the evening and Greg brought up the land. He smiled, saying, "Is there anything Ollie wants? Talk to Dad, and Dad will buy it for you." According to Olivia's wishes, Dunn attributed all the credit to Olivia. Greg didn't realize his second daughter was so good at the competition and took the land so easily. It was more than he ever imagined. Olivia had waited for Greg to say it for a long time. She just shook her head thoughtfully. "There are adequate things in the family. I need nothing." "Oh, Dad, I'm about to be a senior and have to do an internship. Can I intern at the office in your company?" As soon as Olivia said so, Carol looked up at Greg. Greg for sure didn't expect Olivia to make that request. He never thought about Olivia working in the company. If he heard it before, he would refuse, but after this incident, he started thinking about it. Though it was an internship, Olivia wouldn't be asked to do some elementary work if she went to the Whites group. Carol and Jessica looked at each other. Then Carol smiled and said, "What are Ollie's plans after graduation?" "Yuri's studying cultural industry management. What do you want to do when you finish schoolwork?" When Olivia went to college, she was the one who prepared all the work. No one cared about her. No one was concerned with her future. Carol was even more eager to see Olivia marry an unknown person and live the rest of her life without a college education. As far as Carol was concerned, all of the family's possessions were Jessica's, and Olivia couldn't take any of them. Of course, Olivia should not be allowed to go to the group. Olivia surely couldn't reveal her plans. She pretended to be having no idea. "I don't know. My major entails various understanding and learning. It was just a random application, and that's why I am at a loss in finding an internship. All my classmates have found an internship, and I am the only one left." As soon as he heard the last sentence, Greg, who didn't like being compared, snapped. "Internship is easy to handle. I will give a call to the secretary. You can report to the HR department whenever you want to come. As for the position, you'll be a secretary's assistant." "Thanks, Dad. I'll report to the office as soon as I get school stuff done," Olivia said happily. Carol stared straight ahead, her face maintaining a loving look. "Assistant secretary, isn't it a little too complicated?" Ollie doesn't get it. How about letting her do something easy? Greg was fond of Olivia than Jessica for the moment. Upon hearing Carol's snort in displeasure, he said, "Though she doesn't understand now, she can learn it. It was just an internship, not an official job." She was so petty to block it. Carol had to keep her mouth shut in the face of her husband's accusations. She also lost her appetite for a while, with ups and downs in her mind. Why did Olivia suddenly want to go to the Whites group? Could it be that she planned to work at the company in the future? Could she be coveting the White family's fortune and trying to get the company? Carol's mind overflowed with so much suspicion. She looked to Jessica to see what her daughter's attitude was, but Jessica was distracted. Although Jessica would glance at Olivia from time to time, she had already been absent-minded. Jessica went out in the morning and went back very late these days. Carol didn't know what she was doing, so she got angry. Then Carol rolled her eyes and finally reassured herself. Jessica worked at White's anyway. Couldn't she still hold Olivia down? She could watch closely. Olivia wouldn't make twists and turns. Late night, Olivia sat in her room and put Haley's things in the box, carefully placing it under the bed. She brought them with her when she left Vincent's house. She had achieved her purpose, and she planned to turn it to the police tomorrow. After that, she should be checking the evidence, turning over the case, arresting Dunn. She would be on guard against a series of things, or Dunn might get away with it if she wasn't careful. When she handed over the evidence, even if she tore Dunn apart, she had to make sure Dunn never got back in the game. It was the only way for her to live safely for the rest of her life, or this person would end her sooner or later. The next morning, Olivia was still in trouble on her way to the police station. A car slammed into the taxi Olivia was in. Olivia was knocked unconscious. When she waked up, she found herself tied up in an abandoned warehouse. There was a noise at the door. She looked up and saw two strong and strange males who were wearing masks and hats on their heads and covering so tight that only a vague brow of cruelty could be seen. They looked like outlaws. Olivia's head was a little dizzy, and the scene seemed to be spinning in circles. She should have had a concussion. She clasped her hands in a death grip to clear her mind and analyze her situation. She was intercepted even though she had dodged the stalker sent by Dunn before she got in the car. The fact could only mean one thing. The person who kidnapped her was someone else. It was likely to be Jessica, just as Olivia guessed. Outside the warehouse, Jessica was trading with Dunn. She was carrying a cipher box for Dunn to see. Olivia was on her way to the station when I stopped her. Now she's inside. The evidence is in the box, and the password is only known by Olivia. If you delete my nude pictures, I'll leave both Olivia and the password box to you. Dunn breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the lockbox. This time it was indeed thanks to Jessica, or he would be screwed finally. He nodded at Jessica. Then he very errantly took out his phone and deleted those awful pictures right in front of Jessica's face. But when he reached for the suitcase, Jessica pulled her hand back and said defensively, "I have to make sure you have no copies." Someone as treacherous as Dunn would always leave something to fall back on. Jessica couldn't afford to leave such potential troubles. "So what do you want?" Dunn said in the meantime, impatiently. "I want you to swear an oath that if you made a backup, you'll have no peace in your mind for the rest of your life. Also, Haley will haunt you. Her spirit will come for you, and you will be uneasy forever. Besides, your son and your daughter will not be spared." It was a particularly vicious vow that not only poked at the dark and fearful part of Dunn's heart, but also is involved in his beloved children. Dunn was a businessman, and businessmen were somewhat superstitious, so he had taboos about many things. It was only because of the psychological effect that Jessica made him swear. Dunn's face turned ugly. Haley was a nightmare to him. Many times he would dream of her coming to claim his life. Then he would wake up from the dream and find himself in a cold sweat. Gritting his teeth, Dunn felt in his pocket for a flash drive and tossed it to her. No more backups. Jessica was still staring at him. Dunn closed his eyes, the veins in his temples popping several times. Then he recounted what Jessica Jessica had just said in its original form and said in exasperation, "That's reassuring." Jessica picked up the flash drive, gave Dunn the lockbox, and brought her people away. As much as she'd like to punch Olivia to relieve herself, her status didn't allow her to expose herself. Anyway, Dunn wouldn't let Olivia go off. Dunn entered the warehouse with the lockbox. Upon seeing Olivia, he couldn't help but let his fire go out of control. He took 2 steps forward and slapped Olivia hard across the face. "You bitch! How dare you play with me?" Olivia was even more dizzy, nauseous, and wanting to vomit. Her face was burning and aching, and she even had echoes in her ears. With a sharp light in her eyes, she looked up at Dunn with cold eyes. Olivia was for sure tied up very tight, but Dunn was still frightened by her cold light. There was a moment the creepy feeling came from the bottom of his heart, making his hair stand on end. The next second, he realized that he had nothing to fear, and no one would know even if he killed Olivia. He said viciously, "While I'm easygoing, you tell me the password." Olivia lowered her eyes, looked at the box in his hand, scowled, and whispered carelessly, "Yuri, so stupid. I was thinking about what tactics you might use, and how mighty you are." Dunn didn't get Olivia's point for a moment. He only reckoned that she was delirious from the beating she suffered. He snorted, "Disobedient? Do you believe I can make you beg for your life in one night?" He ever abused women in countless ways, especially in bed. Olivia was supposed to be his newest prey, but he didn't expect that the praise claws were so strong that he'd lost his appetite. Now that he was in charge of his life, his lustful desire appeared again. Olivia's cheeks were red and puffy. She did not lose her original good look. Instead, there was more than a hint of sadism, which made Dunn even more excited. Then he grinned, "If you don't tell me, I'm going to fuck you right here and now." This time Olivia stopped dawdling as if she was intimidated by him and gave out the password, 9527. With a clattering, Dunn pressed the code number and opened the case. Immediately afterward, Olivia watched with satisfaction as Dunn's face went from ruddy to black and then slowly to white. Indeed, there were clothes and books in the lockbox, but they were brand new and not evidence. If Olivia went to the police station with a lockbox, one would be 100% sure that the box contained the evidence for the report, so Dunn didn't even suspect it. In one fell swoop, Dunn had fallen from heaven to hell. He dropped the box, grabbed Olivia's shoulders, and shook them violently like a madman. "Where's the stuff? Where did you put it? Fucking say it! Is that the attitude when you ask people for help?" Olivia snickered. Dunn panicked, not knowing for a moment whether to laugh at Olivia or threaten her. He stroked his forehead in confusion. "There's an hour left. If I don't get back safely, the stuff will be turned over to the police station and you're screwed," Olivia warned slowly. Dunn fisted and unclenched his hands. He repeated the process several times. Eventually, he was like a deflated ball. As soon as she saw the look on his face, Olivia knew that she had won her bet. She had prepared it for a long time, so she dared not to go to the police station with the evidence by herself in case of accidents. Old tricks could also be useful, so she played her old tricks again. She took fake evidence to draw all the attention to herself. At the same time, the evidence, not surprisingly, was already at the police station. Late last night, she went out over the wall and gave the evidence to Maggie. Olivia asked Maggie to turn into the police station the next morning. Maggie could be safe with her identity and would also make the police department take the case seriously. Olivia hurried to buy herself time to escape. Otherwise, when the police came for Dunn and spooked him, Dunn would drag her along for the ride. After a struggle inside his mind, Dunn untied Olivia and drove her back. He was so passive right now. He would like to kill Olivia, but he couldn't afford to gamble. As she passed the Yellow River Bridge, Olivia faintly heard the sirens and her heart sank. She turned her head and said, "I'm not going home. I'm getting out of the car right here." Dunn wondered, "Where are you going?" "Don't meddle in my affairs." Dunn pulled over and Olivia got out of the car toward the crowded area. At the same time, as the sirens grew closer, Dunn sensed something was wrong. He immediately got out of his car and came after Olivia. Olivia lost her composure and scampered off. She predicted wrongly that the police arrived sooner than she expected. Olivia used most of her energy when she fought Dunn at the warehouse. Therefore, she was caught by Dunn without running for more than a few feet. She turned around and went to kick Dunn in the crotch as hard as she could. Dunn curled up in pain, but the hand that was holding her still held firm. The two of them shoved at the guardrail when the police were gradually closing in. Dunn already knew he was finished, his eyes full of madness. "If you try to kill me, you won't live. I will have to take you with me when I die." He had a death grip on Olivia's shoulders and held her most of the body over the railing, trying to throw her into the river. Mad Dunn was so strong that Olivia couldn't resist. "Olivia!" Olivia vaguely heard a shout before she fell into the river. It sounded like Vincent's voice. Olivia felt sure that she was hallucinating. The next second, water poured relentlessly into her nasal mouth. By instinct, she struggled with the river, sinking and floating. The Yellow River was flowing so fast that Olivia could feel herself drifting forward with the current uncontrollably. The fear of death surrounded her. She never thought that she would die in the Yellow River. What to do? She was unhappy. She had so much left to do. Many images crossed his mind. Finally, it set on Vincent's face. How would he react if she died? A second before she passed out, a warm hand grabbed her in a death grip.